everybody? Welcome back to the Fatherhood Experience. I'm Dr. D. I'm here tonight with five awesome fathers. As you know, we are the Fatherhood Experience Barbershop Talk. Shout out to Famous Barbershop in Lunenburg, Massachusetts. You got to give love because that's where the Fatherhood Experience show originated from. So shout out to Famous Barbershop. Tonight, we're here to talk about fatherhood and young voices. I'm kicking around the fathers I have with me today to introduce themselves. Derek, we'll start off with you.
Derek Johnson, local real estate agent in the area, father of two 12-year-old daughter, 9-year-old son.
Cool, cool, cool. Larry, you're next. What you got?
What's up, Larry? Father of two, owner of Famous Barbershop. Here to kick it with y'all.
Cool. Is what you got?
Hello, everyone. My name is Ismael Santiago, father of six, grandfather of one. Too many ages to name off right now.
Grandfather. Love it, love it. Mr. Bennett, what you got? The OG of the group.
Junior barber at Famous Barber Shop. For three kids, four grandboys.
Love it, love it. And one of the newcomers to the group, Mr. Chris, also Dr. Chris. What you got, sir?
I love it. I love it. Chris Beachu, client at the barber shop. Love to kick it with my guys, Larry and Junior, and everyone here. So appreciate y'all, fellas.
Appreciate you as well. Appreciate you. And everybody else said how many kids they got. I didn't say how many kids I got. I got five, three boys and two girls. So let me just throw that in there as well. Although I know Iz got me beat, got all of us beat, what he got, but that's okay. That's the way it works. So again, tonight we're here to talk about fatherhood and young voices from the perspective of what do we give our children in allowing them to speak their minds, or how do we allow them to speak their minds? Anybody want to take that?
I'll start. So I think this is a really cool topic for me just because it's polar opposite of how I grew up versus how we teach and preach and parent. Growing up in a household where it was very much equal parenting, but my father's voice, with 22 years military, coming up, living in New York, being one of the only black kids growing up in South Carolina when he grew up. He had a very hard personality, when it came to a lot of things, structure and respect, most importantly, right? And that was huge. And so, my intro is like it's been a challenge and it's been a journey of getting out of and that's actually wrong. Um, Doing my father proud and taking a big piece of me, which is that respect and structure piece, that yes sir, no sir, what dad says, what mom says is the final. There is no discussion, there's no talking back. um and there are pros and cons to everything, and so dealing with my cons and the results of having parents like that, and and how I am as a person, and my relationship with my parents versus my kids' relationships with me, right? And the complete opposite, allowing them to have that space to speak up and not be afraid to talk back, like the pros and cons of that. It's wild because it's so different, and that's kind of been my journey of parenthood when it comes to this.
You touch on so many points there, especially again, I had a chance to know your father from a
Yep.
distance. He spent some time in the political world in Fitchburg, and I know he was very well respected. So again, God rest his soul as
Thank you.
well. But I never had a detailed conversation, but I used to just see him in passing, and just he carried himself a certain type of way. So yeah, it was good to see that. But you mentioned a couple of things about like allowing your kids to have that free will and free expression. But to what point though? To what point?
I can tell you my story, and then I'll pass it on to everybody else. That's one of the biggest things that I struggle with, is that, to what degree, to what end does it become disrespectful versus them speaking up, and it's a give and take. It's easy for me to sit here amongst you guys and talk about it. It's a different thing to actually live it, right? Because it's easier said than done, sort of things. At the baseline, the thing that I always have to try and remember is, and my wife is fantastic at helping me through it, is that they are kids and they are new to all of this. You know what I mean? And so be it's a double-edged sword because you allow them to talk, because I allow them to have that space. It just allows for a quicker progression of their conversation skills and topics, right? They're able to, and they still very much are kids, but like, it's easier for me because of the flow of conversation to think of them almost as an adult when it comes to how I speak to them, but they're not. And so it's like the conversation has the facade of a very mature feel, but it's coming from my 9-year-old's mouth, right? And so there are things that they don't know what they're saying, and they genuinely don't. And so it's really, really, really tough. But at the end of the day, it's like I have to give them grace way more than they have to, like, be in charge of what comes out of their mouth because they're still trying to figure this out. And so that's what I try to keep in mind, is that they are still kids and it's really hard. I'm happy that I have my wife as a partner and a guide on that, and almost like a coach, right? Like, just she doesn't tell me specifically what to do, but she'll check in and just, give a hand signal from afar to be like, Derek, relax, check your tone. So that's sort of that's my take on like.
You got one of those two? You got one of those two, right?
Yeah,
Check
but
your tone.
you know what though? It's like I'm so great, and I told her this, and I know I said I'd stop, but I think it's really important to the conversation. Like, Brooklyn is my clone, Avery is her clone, and so
Yeah.
because I have such an easier time talking to Brooklyn, and she has such an easier time talking to Avery, we like have notes, and I told her the other day that I'm so grateful to be able to watch her interact with Avery because he takes a very different needed approach to the solution as opposed to Brooklyn, who's very black and white, very stoic like I am. And I don't need to have like a full-on conversation to get things done with her like I do Avery, right? And so it's it's a massive team effort, when it comes to talking to these kids, but because they're so different, like it's like talking to mini me and mini her.
And then at the same time, I'm wondering, like, how do we give kids the space, our children the space to advocate for themselves? Like, what do we say? What do we do? And how do we open that door for them to feel like they can advocate for themselves without being disrespectful?
Yeah.
Because Junior's favorite thing is technology. Right. Julia's thing is the technology. So we know that they're on their phones and talking to their friends. What goes on in that house probably ain't going on in this house. But how do we allow them to advocate for themselves? What should we say? What should we do where they feel comfortable to advocate for themselves?
So, so I know for me, I used to always, and I still kind of do, like I'll encourage them to speak up because sometimes there was times where they don't want to say anything. Now, granted, on the flip side, there's times where they say too much, and granted, I know I opened that door, so it's like me like not wanting that door to close. I sometimes just gotta like re-educate how that conversation should take place, versus discouraging the conversation. Do you know what I'm saying? Because I always
But
want the
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Keep going. This. Keep going. Keep
I,
going.
I want the open forum. Even if the open forum is against me, I still want to hear it because, even after 6 kids, I feel like, there's certain things that, I'm not the same father. I'm a different father today than what I was at 19.
Yep.
So
Yep.
at 19, I
True.
might have
That's true.
handled certain things as the fatherhood experience differently than how I am now. And throughout all these years, I've evolved to where I am today.
But
And
when does that conversation switch from guidance, like I'm a guide you to a certain area, and then I'm just going to allow you to speak, freely by yourself? Like, I guess what I'm asking is, when did that shift happen? Like, is there a certain age? Is there a certain conversation? Is there a certain pivot point? Because like I find that a lot of us, including myself, I'm always in the guiding stage versus the open up stage. You know what I'm saying? You
hmm
understand what I'm saying? Is like
yeah.
when is that, like, when do you pivot and go and switch to the next stage? Or is it that easy? And I
So
I give I give a real life situation. Like, and again, I always go back to my oldest boy. I always go back to him. Is that, like, I think I told you guys this, like, I legit broke down, started crying in front of him over something that he did that was unacceptable in my eyes because of where his path is going, or where his path is trying to go. Legit broke down and said, listen, I just want you to do better. I want you to do better. And I felt like that part, I was transitioning from guidance to like opening up the conversation a little bit more, you
Hmm.
know? Um, and I don't know what it did for him because we still haven't really talked about it. So I don't know what it did for him. But for me, it was a lot. I was able to release kind of some feelings, how I felt. And at the end of it, I'm hoping he took it like, my dad really is really here for me. I'm hoping he took it that way. I don't know just
yeah.
yet.
So does he understand what you mean by I want you to do better?
I think he does. I think he does. I think.
Be-
But
Because
I'm also at the point too is where, and I don't know if this is the right thing. Like, you know, he has to do those. Or kids have to do those behaviors for the parent to step back and say, okay, he understands what I'm saying, or she understands what I'm saying.
hmm
Like, there has to be on their part as well, because I don't think we as fathers can just keep pulling and pulling and pulling and pulling. At some point they gotta pull. They have to do something as well. I don't know if that makes sense. You guys
No, it
follow me
makes
with that?
total sense.
yeah,
Well, how
Yeah.
yeah.
much how much severity was the crime that he did? That you have to come down and say, hey, you know what? Brought tears to my eyes.
It was, Junior, it was simple as him not getting A's and B's on his report card.
But brought tears
And
to your eyes.
and him not taking school as serious as it needs to be. Right? Because I was that kid in school. I tell people all the time, people that I teach, I barely graduated high school. I was that kid who just skated by. I wasn't even like, I was crawling by. I was doing the bare minimum. I wasn't focused when I was in school. I was on a football team halfway, on a basketball team halfway. As Derek says, I could have been playing Division I football, probably in the league if
Florida.
I probably
Florida, I'm
probably in
telling
the
you,
league
man. D End University of Georgia, man. You had it written all over you. Sorry, go ahead.
if I
D.
was going to, but I just wasn't focused. I was
So
not focused.
D. Let me ask you a question. Are you focused now?
Yeah, I'm focused now.
Okay. So were your circumstances in high school, did that determine who you are today?
No, it does. But I see what you're saying, but it made life harder for me.
Yeah.
It locked out opportunities I did not even know existed. And if I knew those opportunities existed, would I have changed? I don't know. But I know now, obviously, but I'm trying to prevent them, again, I go back to my, trying to prevent him from going down that path.
Yeah.
You know, the kid's super talented. He doesn't know how talented he is just yet. Super talented, but we need to fix some things. And I'm like, I just don't want you to have to struggle.
So are you coming down on him because of the average grades that you had?
Yes, yes, Junior.
But
I'm coming.
why?
I'm coming down on him to prevent him
Yeah.
from doing the same thing that I did.
You know the average CUME for the United States and kids between 13 and 17?
The average IQ, you said?
Hume,
When you
IQ,
say,
IQ, GPA, Hume. What do you think it
oh,
is
oh,
between
oh, okay.
13 and
I don't,
17?
I don't know. I mean, judging by who we are as United States, I'm gonna say it's
Yeah.
not that high.
2.87.
And how you, out of curiosity, you just spit that fact right out. Is that something you just researched?
No, I looked it up because I wasn't worried about my own kids because my youngest is 22. She's on the dean's list and she's going to law school. So I just a lot of things. I got a lot of time on my hands. I'm home at night and like I'm doing tonight, I'm cleaning. So I look up a lot of things. And between 13 and 7, between 2.87 and 2.93, I think is the national Q.
All right, so it's
So
that's a C
it's
plus.
a yeah, it's a B. The only thing over
Well,
three is A.
and well, in my
Three.
in my eyes, that's a C plus. You
Well,
know,
that's that, but that's not with the educational system. A 3.1 is an A minus. Anything above a 3.5 is an A plus.
that's
You
not
know,
my calculation. No, I don't think
and
that's right.
I mean, they go across the board. I
Yeah.
don't know exactly, but they go across the board. But with my kids, I just don't. I don't fluctuate the same as what I did in high school because I believe that I was more than average educationally in high school and probably athletically too, but I didn't put my self worth towards it because I had a little bit easier because I just didn't want to do stuff and stuff like that. So I never brought my kids. I'm not saying you brought Dante down whatsoever. I know it brought tears to your eyes, but um, for my daughter being on Dean's list, that brings a little tear in my eye. And then, law school, all you can do is lift them up. I mean, it's so much. And like I says, I do believe, and you said at the beginning of the show, technology. I think that took away from a lot of us young kids using their brain. Why use a brain when you can just have serious?
But I'll make sure I say this as well, is that yeah, the low grade, but it was a low grade with the with the combination of missing assignments, leaving your book at in the classroom. It
Yep.
was so if those two things were not there and it was still a C, okay, you're trying. Okay, we can figure out what the other hurdle potentially is. But if you have those other connections, no, that's not good.
Yep.
That's not good because it shows me that there's something that you're not paying attention to, you
So
know?
when with the D question for you, because I wanna bring it back to the topic at hand. When he saw your visceral reaction to the situation, did he say anything? Did he react in any certain way? Like how did
His
that
his his his
situation come?
eyes got bigger. His eyes got bigger. And because of my own feelings, what I did is that I put my hand on his shoulder, and again I started crying, looked at him. I said, I want you to be better than me. And
Yeah.
I couldn't stop myself from crying, so I had to go in the other room, in my room, right, and sit down and calm myself down. Of course, my wife comes in and starts saying, relax, gonna be okay. Like actually, she said I was waiting for a situation like that to happen,
So,
right?
so D, quick question, and I'm not trying to turn this into a therapy session, but do you think the tears was really more about you than they were about Dante? Because the reality is like I can tend to get emotional when I'm talking to my kids, but at the same time I'm talking to them about them and their future. But in my mind, I'm reflecting about something that I may have went through and experienced that might that might choke me up. Now, now, but I understand that the tears are from my past and not really with what they're going through. I just want to prevent them from going through what I went through.
You know what is I you know I think so, man. I think that's I think so. I think that could be both, right? But I think it could be both, and that was just like the tipping point of it, you know. It could be both, But what I want to do for all my kids is to show them that there's there's so many opportunities out there for us. There's so many different opportunities, especially right now, the path that go back to my son that he's on. If you do not do certain things, you're going to be locked out of those opportunities. And academics is one of the things you have to do well. You just
Yeah.
have to, you know. You gotta. I put it like this: you gotta limit your liabilities. These kids gotta limit their liabilities. Like you can't, you gotta be on a certain path. If you're on that path, you gotta limit your liabilities. And your liabilities is, not getting A's and B's. You know, um, messing up in different areas of your life. And I can go on for days about the other stuff, but you just got to limit that type of stuff because when people come looking at you because your athletic ability, unless you're a top five player, unless you're somebody else like a LeBron or you're Shaquille O'Neal size, it's hard to get into college on a scholarship. It is hard to get into a school where you can eventually go somewhere with sports if you got a lot of liabilities in your on your resume, on your transcript, stuff like that. It's not going to work.
So, so, so Dante didn't really react. So when you have certain conversations like this with him, does he advocate for himself and speak up, or
He
does it kind of
does. He
stay
does.
quiet?
He does. He does advocate for himself. He does, and he advocates in a way that now it's just like, it's like it's from a perspective of like, okay, yeah, I think he gets it. I think he gets it. Again, we haven't talked about that night specifically, but I think he gets it now. I think he gets it. And the advocating is like, oh, Dad, I forgot, or the teacher didn't say that. Okay, all right, so it's starting to shift a little bit. It's starting to shift a little bit, and I think he gets it. I
Yeah.
think, you know, uh,
Now, was he able to explain why he forgot his book? Was it just a lapse of
no, he
memory,
explained.
or
No, he explained it, but he explained it from a 14-year-old's perspective. All right. He explained it from a kid who said, the teacher didn't say to take my book home. Well, the teacher called me and said, I told the kids to take their book home. So, but he explained it from that perspective. And
Okay.
he wasn't being disrespectful about it. But he explained it from that perspective. But I also know, and I think, Chris, if you can help me out on this, is that freshman year in high school for boys is potentially, not potentially, could go either way. That's a turning point for boys.
What do you mean?
For ninth grade, entering high school, they say research says that that's a turning point for kids. Like you can go the right path, you
Oh
can
yeah.
go the bad path. And then now you combine that with us being in a new environment, us being in South Carolina, obviously from Massachusetts, in a high school that he doesn't know anything about, I don't know anything about, right? Which is one of the reasons why I chose to take a position inside the school so I can at least be there to figure out what's going on. So yeah, ninth grade. There's research on it. Ninth grade is a difficult year. I don't know about for girls, but I know for boys it is.
Yeah, if I can jump in around the research on this, because I have been involved in the research around that aspect in education. It's on both sides. That transition point from eighth and ninth grade, they're often critical years. So you're ending one year with some consistency. You're going into that period where most would kind of think you're going into that adulthood, right? Because right after high school, you're going into college, and then it's pretty much the entrance into the world. And so it can sometimes be unsettling and anxiety producing for kids, and they're often navigating that emotional growth that's required for them to be sort of self-sufficient and self-sustaining. They're also learning how to navigate different environments. And so when you throw in for you that you're moving into a completely different environment, it's not just the academic environment that they have to acclimate to. They now have to acclimate to an entirely different community, and so all of that is just very different. They're normalizing like how does it feel to make new friend groups, to fit in, what's their circle, how the academic performance is going to be. So it's very difficult, and I would probably say sometimes that transition might be a bit harder for girls, especially around the development of social circles and fitting in and navigating some of the anxiety. Depending on where you are, boys tend to, fit in a little easier in some transitions years. It's not in always things, but it's just environment depending. But you're absolutely right around the data around eighth and ninth grade. There are some critical years. So you have third grade, you have fifth grade, and ninth grade are often very critical years for adolescent development.
Yeah, and you talk about that, and one of the things that helps with my son is that he's a basketball player, so he's in with the basketball team and with the coaches who understands all of that and is in the school. So there's different protections that are in play, and obviously I'm in the school too, so there's different protections that are in play, but it's difficult. It's difficult with some of that type of stuff, and that's why I'm big on trying to try to give my kids that space to advocate for themselves without being disrespectful. All right. Because I don't know if I advocated for myself when I was growing up, with my own environments. Um, so I would say that I don't think I did for the most part. It was like, do what you're told type of approach.
Totally.
And I don't think that's always helpful for kids, especially in today's age, because you got to be able to advocate because we're not always there all the time with them. So how do we know what's going on, inside the school, inside the bathroom, inside the locker room, all that type of stuff. And if we don't teach them to advocate for themselves, I don't know how successful they're going to be going forward.
I think that's one of the things that I struggle with when it comes to like in between my own ears, right? Because it's like I'm really, really hard on myself when it comes to um bad interactions with my kids, right? Like when I take a step back and I'm like, oof, that wasn't my best work. You know what I mean? Um, I always like project and worry about like, if this is supposed to be their safe space and they don't feel comfortable enough to speak up, they've got no chance in the real world, right? And so that's always good, bad, or indifferent. That's always a driver in my interactions with the kids. And I'll tell you one thing that has been a pleasant surprise to me, but I'm sure if you took a step back, it's not really a surprise, but like one of the benefits that I have found about the correlation and the relationship between my ability to stay calm in situations that make me upset, which allows them to feel confident around me to tell the truth in situations like that. Not only does it allow me to give more trust in the real world to them, they're they're more likely to come back to me and my wife and just be like, ugh, like this person did this. Like it's like their moral compass is stronger, I feel. I feel, right? Like I think my kid's moral compass is stronger because they trust our reactions to bad situations, right? Like Avery has for all of the stuff that like we get into it for, the kid's got balls when it comes to like telling the truth on like stuff that he did wrong. Like I would never tell my dad like if I like broke a lamp or something like that. And he's got no problem like doing that. And I'm like in like I get frustrated because the lamp is broken, but that subsides super, super quick because my immediate thought is like, oh my God, I might not be alive, if I would have just been like, yo, dad, broke the lamp. Sorry, like go get a new one. You know what I mean? And it's like that freedom of I view it sometimes as freedom of responsibility, but I know it's not. It's really just trust in me because again, I have to remember he's 9. You know what I mean? And so it's it's a complicated and wild experience, but I think that ultimately my ability to stay calm kind of has the ripple effects and my wife too, but like our I don't even know if it's ability. Our constant trying to stay calm in these situations has allowed for their confidence to grow exponentially at home, which we've seen translate into, especially with Ave, right? Like Brooklyn's really good about speaking up for herself, but I had a lot of worries about Avery because he's kind of a people pleaser with some ADHD stuff, and these other factors that are legit. And so, we had some concerns about him not being able to speak up for himself, despite our, constant push to be like, no, dude, like you don't have to say sorry for that. Like you don't have to say sorry. It's not like you didn't do anything. Or, getting super anxious over an accident, like if he drops milk on the floor. That isn't something that I would get upset about. Like it's just not. Like we drop milk, kids drop milk. But his reaction, is straight out of like, a movie as far as like how he feels about himself and oh my God, I'm gonna get in trouble. So that's always like a stickler point for us, and I really do. I think that because the like some of the things that you were talking about, like your emotional openness, right? Like and him seeing that and viewing that, like that's what resonated for me, and that's what sparked all of this conversation. It's like their trust. What I am coming to find out is that their trust in me has a wide ripple effect across their confidence and ability to speak up in the real world, right? It's almost like, well, hell, if I can do it with my parents, I can do it with anybody, and it's easier for Brooklyn. It's harder for Avery, but they both still do it for the most part. And that's
But
it's just really it's really cool to see and experience and try to, keep it positive.
There's
is he medically ADHD?
Yeah, yeah, he was diagnosed and it's like and I know that I think like a couple of years ago, we had a discussion about like ADHD and like medication and things like that. And we keep him active, we do all those things, but the it's he's he's out there sometimes, right? Like he's just like SOS, I call it, like shiny object syndrome. You know what I mean? And I've got it to some degree, but for him, it's like 2 days ago, I wake him up at like 6:45 uh, for the morning. Things going on. I look up and it's 7:45 and he hasn't even come down for breakfast. So I go up in his room and I'm like, dude, what have you been doing for an hour? And he genuinely looked at me and goes, I don't know. And he was serious, right? And so it's like, all right. And he got nervous again, right? Like he's like, oh crap, it's an hour. We have to leave in 15 minutes to go to school, and I'm still in my pajamas, right? And he looked up and it is time blindness, right? So um it was a sense of like me, just keeping calm and like understanding that it's like, dude, it's okay, right? And I think that again, to sort of kind of loop it back to what we were talking about or what the conversation is, like though that instance could have gone one of two ways. I could have reamed into him, destroyed his confidence, made him feel like crap, and made him feel like he was, a bad kid and all those things. Or, I chose the approach that was true to my heart and, super more helpful was like, it's all right, dude. Like, put your put your put
Hmm.
your pants on and let's get going, dude. Like we
so
need.
Derek, that's the point that I'm at right now, that what you just described. And it took me some time to get here. Like I'm at the point where, all right, yeah, I want you to do this because it's going to be beneficial. And I know this from my own life experiences. But I'm at the point now where I just want to like take off the shield,
Yeah.
like just to be like, hey, yeah, dad made some mistakes. I did all of, I made some mistakes, did that X, Y, and Z. And I cry, I get emotional because I don't want you to do those things. But let's just talk, man. All
Yeah.
right? Like this, let's just I'm at that and I don't know why, but when you just said something that made me think like that's a good part, that's a good place to be in right there.
It's a
That's a
great
good
place.
that's a good place to be. Because you said that conversation could have went one or two ways. It's gonna be like, man, what are you doing? Hurry up, let's go, hurry up. Instead of like, okay, let's just get through it. Right. And I wanna I think I'm making a transition to be in that space right there. And I feel
Awesome.
and I feel
Fantastic to
great.
hear.
Yeah, and I feel great. Right after we get off this call, I'm gonna go upstairs. I'm gonna kiss boy. I'm gonna kiss my daughter's at school right now. My and actually not the Dante, Sienna, Donovan, and my youngest son is asleep. I'm gonna go kiss them and just say, hey, I love you guys. I do that stuff
Yep.
anyway, but I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna say something else. Like I'm open. Let's talk. You know what I'm saying? Like, but it took
Why
me
do you
some
think
time to
is
get
like
there.
sitting here like a Buddha? Like is like the calmest dude ever. Like he's like stoicism on a virtual laptop, but it's because like that's that's the result, right? Like you feel more comfortable with your kids having that open environment, and you get to a place where is where he's just like nothing phases him, and I'm genuine too. Like it's where I am in my world is very much kind of where is I'm getting to where is has been, and it's been, and shout out to is like since day one, like your approach is has always been where like I'm trying to get, and D, like what you're explaining, it's like that's what it is. It's so crazy, like if you have the moments and the ability personally, because I feel that like every day is just like, oh damn man, like if I just do this, this is going to be a hell of a lot easier. Because that's the other thing, it's like in all honesty, I'm trying to make this easier for me too.
Can I
And
ask a can I ask a quick question?
yeah,
Why did you guys have to build up a shield?
Life, Junior. Life. Life.
that's a great
Life has
question.
made me put up a shield. It really has.
Life.
And I would just say also my policing experience has made me put up a
Well,
shield.
I mean, you can't count that, D, because that's a shield between you and the people around you. Now, as far as your family, I need to know what's the shield for? What were
I
you
can answer
protecting?
that
What were you
for
protecting
me.
yourself from? Or why did you not want your son to interfere with your shield? You're protecting yourself from something, or you're protecting them from something from you. I don't, I'd love to hear an answer. That's all.
I,
So
I,
when I say the shield, it's the shield of like I have to protect you from doing what I did, or I have to protect you
yeah.
from the decisions that is going to cause you to not do well in society. I have to put on this face when times I don't feel like that I need to put on that face, right? I need to be a certain type of way, right? And that's what I mean by like the shield. And it's like, for me, that's what I mean by the shield, I guess.
Yeah.
But you're putting up a different perspective as far as the shield and being a dad. I mean, you're talking about how you were back in the day, where again, technology, we didn't have cell phones, and we got roles by the voice of our parents or grandparents or whatever it is. And nowadays, I think the last thing a parent, mother, or father needs to do is put up a shield, because now we have so many things to shield them from. Why should we be one of them?
Yeah, I don't think he means he's shielding his kids from himself. I think that's exactly what he means. He's trying to shield his children from society and the mistakes that could potentially happen and how society
Mm,
will
that's not
will perceive that.
that's not what he
I,
said. Is he said he put up a shield between him and Dante?
No,
If
no, no.
Yeah, I didn't take that like that at
No,
all.
I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
it's a shield of protection from from bad things that could happen if again I go back to something as simple as the grades, right? Something as simple as that I go back to. Like I know what the results are going to be if those things continue to happen. And because of that, I feel like there's some animosity. It was some animosity at times. Be like, oh, dad's always getting on me about my grades, getting on me about, wearing my hoodie, getting on me about wearing my jeans a certain type of way. Instead of just talking through that, I guess. All right. Instead of just saying, hey, listen, you can do it that way, but that's not going to be a good result. Like I used to just get so angry and frustrated when I felt like things were not going my way or he wasn't listening to me. Instead of getting that way, like I would say in that situation, take the shield off and just have a conversation about it. All right. When Derek talks about going upstairs in the kid's room and like he could start yelling or just say, hey, dude, it's okay, let's get through it. Where I would take the yelling approach.
Yeah.
And
I,
You
normally
I
know
I
what I'm
think
would
saying?
I,
think like
I
I don't want to sound like I'm like Buddha because normally I in the past I would take the yelling approach, and I think it's a conscious effort because I have grown. Like it's just the it's just the growth, right? Like
yeah,
Avery's growing, he's figuring things out. I'm growing as a parent. I'm still figuring things out, right? So it didn't happen overnight, and it took a lot of work to get to a place where I think like you know eh, every day I feel I'm more and more in tune of like it is what it is, and like we're all trying. I say this a lot. We're all trying to do the best we can, but I talk about it adults, and I completely, gloss over my own kids, and they're trying harder than I am, to do the right thing, to appease me, and to do to do right by mom and dad more so than anything. You know what I mean? And so it's like I think once I realized that, it was kind of like, you know, man, do they like need some grace, like it's tough to be a kid, and it's tough to find your voice in 2026 when you're a kid because there's so many voices out there. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And so if 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 I can't be there um comfort, right? And it does come back to that, right? Like if I can't be their comfort and if I can't be their sounding board to release 'cause it's tried and true, right? Like they act one way in public. People act one way in public and a different way at home to some degree. Everybody does. And, kids do too. You know what I mean? And with the levels of pressure from their parents and from school and from society and from looking good on TikTok and all these other things, like with social media, like Junior was saying, like there's a lot of internal pressure, right? And so you put all of that together on a 9-year-old mind, and it's like, well, duh, Derek. Of course he's gonna feel it. You need to be that valve for him to blow off some steam because it's not all the time. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And so it's not like he's coming at me 24/7, and we're human. So when he blows off steam, he's I know for a fact. I react in the moment because I'm human too, but I know for a fact that like he's not doing this towards me more so than anybody I've ever met in my life. Not Avery. Like Avery just wants to play with Legos and chill. Like that's his mode. And so I know when he's mad at me, he's not really mad at me. Either A, well, he might be mad at me because I told him to stop playing with Legos and go brush your teeth. And brush your teeth for 3 minutes, like you just saw, like at the beginning of this. Because my man, 90 seconds, doesn't even like spit and just comes back to playing Legos with like
One
toothpaste.
life.
Right. so,
So,
so it's
D, please correct me if I'm wrong. You had said something a couple minutes ago about you told Dante you didn't want it to always be your way, something like that.
No, not. I'm not sure how I said that, Julian, but
Yeah,
not to. I don't think I said be my way. It's a matter
yeah,
of
yeah,
trying to show him the way. Like if you keep doing this, this is going to happen,
Yeah.
right?
yeah, yeah,
Based on my own experiences.
yeah.
Uh, that's what I'm trying to get across.
Yeah, I didn't, I got it mixed up, but I don't want, and what's confusion with, the parents back in the day and now is, when do we finally let our kids be them? You know what I mean? Because back in the day, we came up with our own expressions. What was it? I, brother, or man. And now, Larry and I, we watch a lot of this guy from Chicago, the gas station, whatever. And a lot of the customers, their expression is gang or folk. What up, gang? What
Yeah,
up, folk?
yeah, yeah.
You know
Oh,
what I
what
mean?
up, twin? Like
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
hearing
yeah.
that. I'm hearing all
So,
of that. All
so
of
as
that.
as we're going, we got different dialogue that we have to adjust to with, and thank God, my youngest is 22, and I think hopefully she's past that stage, but I don't know. If she's not, so be it. Um, but we have a lot as parents, man, and try to dial into our kids' intellect at that. Because there's a lot of things. Yeah, and till this day, I ask Larry a lot of times, "Yo, Larry, what the fuck is a? Excuse me.
It's so long.
YN?"
It's so long with no curses.
Yeah, I said, Larry, what is a YN? I said, what's a YN? So me,
Hey,
and I just don't know, you know what I mean? So
hey,
as a parent, if I do not know, I can't intellectually be involved with my 9-year-old if I don't know, so do
hey.
we?
Last year, yeah, last year when Dante was in middle school, is a couple of the kids they were saying YN. I'm like, what are you guys talking about? And I asked one of the coach, and the coach looked at me like I was a fool. He was like, you know what YN is? I have no idea, man. So he told me what it was. He told me what it
I had
was.
no clue. And I'm like, what? I thought it was young N, young whatever. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I had no idea what it, I
What you
had
thought?
no,
It
I
doesn't
had,
mean that.
I, I
That
don't think it
that
does.
no, that's exactly what it means.
That's exactly what it
What?
means.
That's
That's exactly
exactly
what it means.
Yeah. Yeah.
NIG.
Yes.
I don't
A young
know.
ninja. You realize
Okay, okay, got it.
when people put the ninja symbol, the
Uh-huh.
ninja symbol on Facebook, that's what they mean.
No, I don't know.
They'll be like, yo,
Now
these
you know.
ninjas, they're just censoring, they're just
Telling
censoring it.
you. Why lie to you? I don't know. I'm not on
The
Facebook like
way back in the
that.
day when we used to be like, yo, what up, my ninja?
I
Just
never heard of
switch
that
the
back in
word.
the I never heard that back in the day
Yo,
too. 'Cause my
No,
day
no,
was a lot
switch the
longer than
word. Switch
yours.
the word, Junior.
I
That's all.
understand that. I understand
June,
that, but it's just I
June from
just
a
do
different
not.
time.
Yeah, and
Say,
so
what's
for
up, my
me,
brother?
uh, yeah, 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 yeah.
So, so,
Jig it, right on,
but Junior,
right
to
on.
your point, to your point, Junior, when we allow our kids to be themselves, like one of my favorite things to do is see my kids around their friends in
Uh-huh.
their own element, like just being themselves, talking how they talk,
Hmm.
and getting to see. And in some cases, I notice a different pattern of language or a different pattern of conversation that occurs that's with their friends versus
Yeah.
with me and everything. And in some cases, like I find it enlightening to be able
Well,
to experience them being their true natural self with their friends
mm,
and everything. So I enjoy seeing that.
I
Um,
think at I think at fatherhood right now, and you said a perfect example is about allowing. Um, And just for me, like I was saying, I didn't know what a YN was. So how, as a parent like me, you got a lot of parents now that are 40, 50 years old, 8, 9, 10 years old, whatever. How do you allow them to use something or not to use something if the parent is not hip with what they want to use and not use?
Oh, listen, I'm not ashamed of using Google. I've Googled certain acronyms or
Here we
certain
go.
phrases.
I knew it.
What's the problem with that though?
I just it's like,
If you didn't have Larry, Larry's just your Google. Your Google's name's Larry. That's it.
Damn.
uh-huh,
There's
uh-huh.
no difference. Or actually, I'm not shy. I'll ask my kids too, or I'll ask them. Right? What's that mean? Oh, and then
So
sometimes I'll be like, oh, you know what we called that back in the day? We called that this back in the day. Or this is what
and
we used.
here's where the big disappointment for me is, and you guys know it for the past couple of years, is if I'm in a deep conversation with my kid, wait a minute, hold on, Larry, I got to Google what that you just said, what it meant. You know what I mean? And I understand that. That's what the age is now. I understand that. But at the heat of the moment, and you're trying to teach your kid, hey, JC, wait a minute. I'll get right back to you. I got to Google this to make sure I know exactly what I'm talking about and this and that. Nah, I just don't think that's parenting. I really
Yeah,
don't.
but I think you're taking that whole thing out of context right now,
It
Junior.
really
Because in the
isn't.
if I'm
It
having that
is.
conversation, if I'm having a conversation with my kids and they say something to me that I don't understand, I'm going to
Uh-huh.
ask them to explain that to me that
What
I don't understand.
what does that
I'm
mean?
I'm just going to say to them like, I don't know what
Not
you're
in the heat.
saying. You
Listen,
explain that
if
to me.
it's in the heat of the conversation, if your kid and someone else got in a fight in school and they're both getting suspended, and then my daughter says, "Oh yeah, there's YN, blah 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 blah." Okay, YN, why? Why did you punch her? You thinking about that later. You don't think about that in the middle of an argument, or even not an argument, just a
Maybe
disposition.
maybe
Yes, you
you're
do.
not Junior, but I'm
Yeah,
saying
yes,
if
you
I'm
do.
having an argument with my kids and they say something in that argument, I'm gonna be like, I don't know what you're talking about. You need to explain that to me,
Right,
Yeah.
whether it's in
right.
the heat of the
I've
moment
done
or
that.
not.
Done
And
that a
and
million
then
times.
and then in some cases, if it has something to do with the
Okay.
school,
Well,
I'll listen to what the school has to say.
let's think.
If it has to,
Let's do a different scenario. You got to pick up your kid from the police station, and
okay, I've done that before.
now he's saying to the cop, "Oh, this YN, blah blah blah." Da, 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 da." You know what the cop's gonna say? Whatever you said, get behind the bars. You know, number one, because the YN is not, and I get it now. I do. I really do.
Hold on. Who's saying YN? Yes, the kid
Come on, yeah, the
or the
kid.
cop? Okay.
Don't have me come through this phone, man, for real.
No. The
The cop's
reality
gonna
is,
say
but
YN to you.
so
Okay,
what does
so
it
just
have to
I'm
do
just
with
saying like that. The
what
kid
does
is
that have to do with
explaining.
picking
Your
my
kid
kid
is
up at the police station?
he's trying to explain himself to you. And if you're not hip with the maybe the terminology, let's say a different word. I don't know what the terminology that your kid or daughter, whatever is saying. You might say, "All right, okay, let me bail him out, whatever," and then ask him what it is later. But the terminology that is on the board now at the time, 2026, there's some things I just do not know. You know what I mean? And I think that goes along with a lot of other parents. It's not bad that you don't know. It's a good thing that you try to get to know. But if I'm trying to explain something to my daughter or son, and they don't understand the terminology that I'm using, that might be a little interruption of our conversation there. You know, no big deal. But I don't know that terminology, and I'm quite sure I'm talking to my 9-year old son. He's not going to know who the OJs are.
So,
You know what I
Junior,
mean? So,
and I think that's another part there too, is that because of the different dialogue and the different words
yeah,
that different generations are using, how do we communicate? How are we communicating to our children to advocate for themselves when they're going to advocate from the perspective of maybe using words we don't really understand, but they're still
yeah,
advocating. So, I mean, I think that's a topic in itself with that.
yeah.
For the sake of the conversation, what I want to do for the respect of time is to, say our final thoughts. Larry, you haven't said anything just yet, man. I know
Nothing.
you're
Yeah.
listening, right? I'm listening. I'm watching you like Larry about to jump in. Larry about to
Yeah,
jump
I'm just listening, man. I don't let my kids say shit. Y'all tripping.
but Larry, but you know what's
Let Max talk
interesting?
back
I'm
to
glad
me.
you said it. I'm glad you
But
said it.
and I learned this. I learned this when I was working as a police officer from the chief of police that I worked for, Chief Ernie Martineau, right? And he said something to me that made sense. He says, he wants his police officers to respond to things, not to react to things,
Mm.
right? And I took that. I'm like, you know what? I kind of like that now. As a parent, I want to respond to stuff, not react to it. All right. Because reaction, you're all in your feelings. But when you respond, it's a more thoughtful, articulated approach when you respond to
Yeah, but
things.
it's easier said than done in the moment.
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
give you a perfect example. Because I'm all for like my kids speaking for themselves and advocating for themselves. Growing up, I wasn't able to do that. You know what I'm saying? Like I couldn't even think of talking back to my mother. If I thought of talking back to my mother, I was getting slapped in my head for thinking about it. You know what I'm saying? So, um, I always told myself when I was younger, like when I have kids, they're not gonna be afraid to speak up. You know what I mean? Um, but there's a fine line. You know what I'm saying? The other night, I come home one night, and the first thing I do when I come home, my wife is cooking dinner, and the first thing I do when I come home is I get to the cupcakes and I sit right in front of my son and I open up the cupcakes and I start eating one. And he goes, "Dad, can I have one?" So I say, "All right, listen." I say, I'm going to give you one, but we're going to make a deal. All right. When the dinner comes, you got to eat all your food. I don't want to hear that you're full and none of that. You eat all your food. He said, "All right, Daddy, cool." He said, "All right." So I gave him a cupcake. So come time for the dinner, he's just looking at his plate. He's like, "Mom, yeah, I don't know. This tastes kind of weird." That's code for I'm not eating tonight. You know what I mean? So now I'm sitting here looking at him like, yo, we had a deal. You know what I'm saying? Like, you gonna get me in trouble. You know what I mean? So I'm looking at him and he's like really giving in on the plate. So I tell him, I said, "Listen, man." I said, "Listen, we had a deal. You said you would eat all your food if I gave you the cupcake. You know what I'm saying?" So he's just like, I ain't even hearing. He's sitting next to me, he's sitting next to me, but sitting across from his mother, and he's talking to his mother like this, so I can't see what he's saying. Like I can't hear him, right?
Larry, that was
So,
a setup. That was a setup. You got set up.
How old
You
is your
got,
so
you
son?
got,
then,
How
you
old's your
got
yeah,
son,
set
so then
Larry?
I said, "Listen, this is the thing." I said, "Listen, Si, check it out. From here on out, I'm not gonna give you no more snacks.
Broke
You
the
know
code.
what I'm saying? Don't ask me for no more snacks. I ain't giving you no more snacks." You know what I mean? He looked me dead in my eyes and said, "I don't care," and went up my chest and shit.
How,
And I just
how old's your
snapped on
son,
him
Larry?
and like, I'm like, "What? You don't care? Check it out. Eat now." But the happy-go-lucky dad just got stuck. Eat your food. You know what I'm saying? Now I don't care. You eat your food. You should have told me you don't care. Eat your food now. You know what I mean? He starts crying and stuff and talking about his stomach hurt. He gonna throw up. When you're done, come back and eat your food. You know what I'm saying? So I think there's a fine line between letting them express themselves and just like, I don't know, talking back. You know what I mean? I don't talking up and talking back, two different things. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I think we're always going to be guiding. I forgot who said that they like a guy, I think it's Derek who said like he's guiding, you know what I mean, his kids and stuff. We're always going to be doing that. Always. You know what I mean? I think like we're gonna be old people still guiding our kids on how to speak and how to do this and you know what I'm saying? Like it ain't never gonna change from a parent's perspective. But I just think if there's a fine line and um I would just suggest to like all the parents and the young parents out there to get a grip on that young. You know what I mean? Meaning teach your kids at a young age. Teach them while they're still learning how to speak. Teach them how, you know what I mean? Before they go to school, teach them all of these things so that when they get to like 9 years old and stuff like that, not going to say it's going to be a breeze, but it's going to be a little bit easier. You know what I mean? But I think it's just tough, man. It's a fine line. You know what I mean? I like to joke a lot. So when I'm joking on somebody, when is the ha ha turning into something else? You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. It's just
I
I'm
live
all
that
for
every day.
advocating for themselves, but it's like you also got to learn how to drive that car because it could go bad any second. You know what I mean? And then you could take that out into the regular world. You know what I mean? Now you're getting in and out of different jobs because you have a mouth on you. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It's tough.
I
It's
got
really like it's an interesting subject because it's so tough and the line is so fine. You know what I mean? It's like drawing a line in the snow when the wind keeps blowing.
yeah. I got a question for you guys for probably next episode. Do you think that us as parents making it easier for our kids are making them softer?
No, no,
Absolutely.
no, no,
I think so.
Yeah.
no,
So
absolutely not.
if we
Absolutely
grew
not.
up, so let me elaborate. If we grew up, well, say me, I'm 54. I grew up, riding BMX bikes, sledding in the woods, building forts. To compare to nowadays where they're the PlayStation, Xbox, Sony, whatever it is nowadays. Um, we didn't have it. I never heard my parents say to me, I can honest to God say this. I never heard from my mother and my father that they said, we're trying to make it easier for you back then. They always told me, we're trying to make you, you know, enough to live the real world. That's what my dad and my mom always used to say that to me. They never said, we're not here to make it easy. And it just came to me maybe 5 minutes ago. So it's not something that was in the back of my mind. And now I just thought of it. We're making it so easy for our kids. What are they learning as individuals, adults, to make it on their own without referring to something being so easy?
Junior, I think that's a great topic for our next show. And one of the things I'm gonna ask you fellas is that do you want to open this conversation up? Now that we're in a Zoom format, other people can join us as well. And do you want to open that conversation up to people that we are connected to on social
Yeah,
media, dads we're connected to on social media? I think that would
yeah.
be something that we can put out there. But for the sake of time, let's get to the closing thoughts on our perspective of giving voices to our children as they're going through their journey. I think we have to. I think we got to teach our kids to advocate for themselves. And if we can't do that, if they can't advocate for themselves at home, what makes them okay to feel like they can advocate for themselves outside of your house, right? Outside of home. So my final thought is you have to. You absolutely have to, especially in today's age, because of Junior's favorite thing, technology.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with that.
What about you?
For me, I'd say so a couple things. So one, Larry, for your story about the snack and the I don't care,
So
I
good.
can't I can't say I'd be as patient as I am today. I may have very much reacted the same way you did, even currently, right now, if that situation would occur or something. But not that that was a wrong way to react. That was just at that point, it was like, oh, okay, that's how you want to act. So now it's a lesson time. That's
Mhm.
how I take that. I don't take that as a negative experience. That might save him later on in life. But
Mhm.
definitely, I agree. We got to let kids speak up. I think it's important for them to speak up. And a lot of times when and I can't as much as I appreciate the accolades from you, Derek, I can't say I was always like this. This is something I became. And my oldest son is about to be
Is
27
hold on a
next week.
second. You fired me with that same look.
Yo,
You fired me with that same look.
What you mean? What being calm, cool, and collective?
He was like, let me tell
Yeah.
you something.
Yeah, so I try to, even at a young age, I've always tried to pride myself as being calm, cool, and collective, but I can't say that that's always been the outcome of how I've handled every certain circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
With that being said, D, you probably deserve to get fired at that time. So I can't.
There
mm,
you go. Hey.
But
You
but
don't get fired because you're doing good.
but 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 even that line where it can become disrespectful or not, that again, that just becomes with teaching. Like I've had conversations with my kids and gone over scenarios and been like, well, just keep in mind if you're at a school, and you're talking to the principal, like how you deliver that message. I've actually gone over with them like, hey, you know, is that how you said it? Because something like that, this is how you should say this. Or did you tell the principal that when they're or like if there was something that involved a teacher or a principal? Because even when we're dealing with the teachers and the principals, there's the teacher side, there's the kid side, and then there's somewhere in there, there's the truth. And unless my kid makes me believe that he's a liar on a regular basis, I'm going to take a little bit of the information of what the teacher gave me. I'm going to take the information that my son gave me, or my daughter gave me, and I'm just going to be like, all right, well, you shouldn't be doing anything to interrupt the classroom, so I shouldn't be getting these emails. And I understand you're saying it was just this, but is it interrupting everybody else? It might have been. There you go.
You know
Maybe
what's
that
funny? What's funny is that my wife and I have a conversation all the time because I'm more apt to take the teacher's word first.
that's because
Uh,
you're a teacher.
yeah, no, that's true. That is true. Um, Derek, final thoughts.
Um, I think Larry's story that might be one of the funny stories I've heard, and that's like that's like Fredo Corleone level of betrayal. Like that's just like that's
Yeah, that's a setup,
wow.
man. Setup. That's a setup.
That's 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 Wesley Snipes and Ice-T level of uh that was but I do appreciate that, and I think that one of the things that you said is it's funny to talk about, but it hits so real is that level of comedy, right? Because um Damon Wayans said it first, so underrated as a stand-up comedian, but he said if it's in the Wayne's house, if it's funny, you're not going to get in trouble. And that's kind of been my credence for a really long time. And so there is a level of speaking up with the comedy tone of knowing that you can get away with a couple of things if you make dad laugh and mom laugh too. And that's a whole nother world, but that really struck me where it's like it's funny to talk about, but it's real, and there are real consequences in real life from that comedic touch. And I've already experienced it for some of Brooklyn's teachers, right? Where she's gotten away with a couple of things because she's incredibly witty, and that makes me so happy, but at the same time it makes me terrified. So that was just, and I think that would be fun to talk about. But overall, I think just like always, I really appreciate this group because there's so many different perspectives on the same topic, and I think that for me at the end of the day, it really does just boil down to D, it was your first question, like what's that point, what's that conversation of like of them, like where it's like it's an okay moment, like you get it, or this is what's the defining moment. And I don't think it's a moment, but I do think, like for me, I woke up one day and was like, yeah, I kind of trust them a hell of a lot more than I did before. You know what I mean? And I think for me it's that trust, age appropriate trust, where it's like, all right, I'm gonna give you the benefit of the doubt a lot more than I used to. And I think the benefits of that perspective have really improved their confidence, which leads to their advocation for themselves.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. I think you're right. It's not a moment. It's like a period, right?
Yeah,
It's like because it's not just one thing. It's an ongoing document that you're always editing, you
yeah,
know,
yep.
always uploading,
It's a living
always.
document for sure.
Junior, final thoughts on this one.
Um, You guys have to be around Larry a lot more because this brother right here, you need to invest in a camera at the shop because I swear to God to you, he'd be a millionaire. Swear to God, with his comedy, man, is just unbelievable. I tell him all the time. He says it's me, Junior. We getting cameras this year. Um, I'm all for the young YNs, I guess,
Mm.
sharing their voices. But even with the problem with that, with being a little bit older, is I'm not always in favor of the youngins sharing their voices over racism at 18, 19, 20 years old when they don't know the difference between racism and prejudice. They don't they hear about it. And in my belief, I think it is for an easier way to raise your voice and maybe get a day off from school rather than raise your voice on what the meaning is. And I always revert back to the talk about Kaepernick. Kaepernick wasn't raised in a ghetto. He wasn't. He had some money and he went to a nice school. He never sat down and put his knee down when he was in high school and then when he was in college and then he went to the Super Bowl, and then got all that money he lost and then he started putting his knee down. Was it a coincidence because he got benched? I don't know. I don't know. But I'm all for people raising their voices, man, and that's all we have to deal with in society today. We can't do anything else. And what's left for raising your voices? Raising a gun. That's what it is. That's what society has brought us to. If you want to raise your voice, raise your voice. It's something that you're behind that you actually seen. You know what I mean? I seen the racism. My dad seen the racism. My mom, but in racism now is so different because you have racism against Indians, against Chinese, against whoever it is. Back in the day, it was white and black. So I am all for kids raising their voices, man, but I'm just all for it too. Learn what you're going to raise your voice about. Don't go ahead and shout about racism and Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King, but you have no vivid imagination of what they came from, especially when they're not even educating us in the schools about it no more.
So I think that's where we step in, Junior, is for the
Yeah,
obviously education tip.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But for the sake of time, everybody,
Yes,
again, thank
sir.
you for joining the Fatherhood Experience. We see you again very soon, because we got a lot of other great things to talk about. But enjoy your night. It's always been
Sir.
wonderful. See you guys soon.
Thank you.